for the draft. Let me start at the beginning. Happy Saturday. It is the 26th of April in the year 2020. Oh, that's not cool. That's not cool at all. My apologies. I'll figure that out later. It's Saturday. I choose to get out and fix. But if I did not, I do apologize, everybody. What's my team? Sorry, y'all. Yeah, fiber going on. The show today is going to be about the phone. That phone on me. The show today is going to be about the Pope. It's going to be about Trump. Be about full guest on the show. You know, we've been doing this thing for a minute now to be able to first video show. And Coach Franklin, he's about the Sinners. You know, it's amazing. It was definitely worth being in a state to watch it. It's a lot. It's a lot going on in it, but it's really 100% right when he said what he said, and we all get to go see it. He told us to. So, this the draft up. And I don't know what's going on. I'm gonna keep talking, and then hopefully I'm not too much lagging on you all's end. But anyhow, anyone that has followed a lot of our pages that went to the league. Today is the last day. Congratulations, young man. You've made it. Hard work again is you got to solidify spot and take it on from there. And hopefully you all have very good careers. You know, again, it's highs and lows. There are players that people project who are still sitting, waiting for that call to come. It has not happened for some of them yet. So hopefully their names will be called at some point today. And press from there. Those cats, Shador Sanders is the highest rated cat on the board. I'm sorry, but he was one that thought was going the first round. It's now the fourth round starting today. Actually, start right now, about now, actually. And he has yet to call Shiloh Sanders. His brother has yet to be drafted as well. The thought with Shiloh is a pick, or he'll go as a undrafted free agent. No one thought that Joe would this long, to be honest with you. If he fell out the first round, most people thought that he would go in the second round. Did not think that he was going to fall to the fourth round at all. However, he has a brilliant opportunity to still make it in the league and make people always remember his name. I mean, that's what it's about. As I wear my Ravens hat, let's please remember and recognize that some years ago, 2018 was the year, the Ravens came from the first round to the people. Did Morrison to be an NFL quarterback? He's 2-time MVP. It'd be third, 3-time, but we won't get into that. We'll get into that later. And outside of that, this week, just like every week, life be life, and not so bad this week on a personal tip. Hopefully, it's not that bad for you all either. But all our chances. Therapist going to be for that again. One of the things that she came to me with was sometimes I keep a lot of conversations at a surface level because I'm very comfortable in that space, and or I stick to what I'm comfortable with, politics and sports, because I don't like to delve into my emotions. One of the things I've said to her, one of the things I've said on the show, one of the things I've acknowledged to a lot of people throughout my life is when you're trained a certain way when you're young, it's very difficult to pivot from that, especially if you've never felt comfortable enough to try to pivot for it. You haven't felt the support from people around you to try to pivot from it. So this has been a huge challenge for me. I'm seeing her specifically this go around because I have a granddaughter at this point. And I want to be the same dude moving forward in life possible with my two granddaughters. This will have a huge impact upon that, and it will be a positive thing for me in the short and the long. We'll see. I'm hopeful. I'm willing to put in the work. I'm doing this exercise because there's an app that you download on your phone, and they have you doing all these exercises and stuff. And the first exercise that I did had me paying attention to my breathing. It said focus on your chest or focus on your stomach, and I was focused on my stomach, and I was like, "You fat. You need to lose weight." That was my thought. I don't think that was the point of the exercise, but that's what I got out of it in that moment. So yeah, I got some more work to do on that, but it's okay. I'm at a good place in life all the way around to where um, things like that do not impact me as they used to. I guess 10, maybe 15 years ago, I would have gone extremely hard. I would have done something that I don't think is or was sustainable, but it would have been the thing to do in the moment to kickstart and to go and to run, 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 run. And I would have got burnt out. I'm like, yeah, I'm not doing that no more. Now I'm looking at things, challenges, bigger challenges like eating an elephant, just one bite at a time, and giving myself some grace when I fall short of the goal of the moment, but not giving myself grace or allowing it to fall off the trail because that ain't cool. Once I start something, I'm committed to it. I have some stops, but I'm still going to push through in order to get to where I need and want to go. So those are the things that I'm learning, and those are the things that I'm dealing with in life right now. Again, don't mind being personal at all because I think that the more stories you hear, the more free you may be in realizing or coming out of your shell to be yourself. And there's nothing wrong with that. You know what I'm saying? We are all allowed space. We should be allowed space to be ourselves. And sometimes the person that's stopping you from doing that is actually yourself. And, you know what I'm saying? Because you're just not that comfortable to be that expressive of who you are in full. So moving along, outside of that, I'm gonna stick with the most holy Brother Barry, Sister Rashi. Uh, Rodney will join us here shortly. I haven't heard from anybody as of yet. Usually I do, but that's okay. So I went to see Sinners last week, Sunday, and it was late. It was late, and I knew it was late, but I was like, Thomas hyped it up. I gotta check it out. There's no way I can get around it. So spoiler alert: if you haven't seen the movie, this may be where you need to step away for a half a second and then come back, just so you all know. So I'm not a horror movie. I wouldn't really say this was a horror movie per se, though. I guess maybe borderline horror, but sit myself in the theater. It's 7:30. I think I got to see the 7:30 show. And did not know how long this movie's going to be. I didn't. I'm thinking it's going to be like an hour and a half. So I'm like, 7:30, 9 o'clock. Okay, that's cool. My bedtime is between 8:30 and 9:30. Not trying to really be out too much longer than that. But it was a lot longer than an hour and a half. But again, it was worth it. So here I go, sitting down, no popcorn. I just got finished eating, so it wasn't even that type of situation. Get in on time. On time, by the way. Why that movie? Intro so daggone long. It's like 25, 30 minutes before you get to the daggone movie. From the start time. Say the show starts at 7:30. I'm like, no, that damn thing. If it's a 7:30 start, it's not until like 7:55, 7:53 that daggone movie starts. Get the center on this thing because again, that's cool. So the build up in the movie. Okay, it was well written. It was well directed. The actors were brilliant. The set was very rich. Loved the clothing too. I mean, Ryan Coogler, you did your thing, bro. You really, really, really did your thing. Anyhow, so the movie begins, and the opening scene is actually the ending. Sort of, kind of annoying. Young man is driving. He comes to me. Comes into a building, opens the building, turns out to be church. Folks in there going through service. His father is the preacher. His father invites him in, even though some of the folks in the congregation wanted to kick him out because they knew what he had seen or they felt what he had seen. And his father brings him closer and asks him to drop. He had the handle of a guitar. He's drop the guitar, and then the actual movie starts from there. Which actually happened the day previous to Sunday, so it was Saturday. Man, the love interests and the lust interests were perfectly cast. Again, the writing was just spot on. I appreciate the way that everything and everybody's path were weaved together. There were hints of the Asian community in the movie, and if you are not familiar, the Asian community was very instrumental in assisting the black community during the days of segregation because they weren't white, they weren't black, they were sort of kind of in the middle. So usually they could play the game of riding the line, and they weren't too much messed with because they did a lot of the services that white folks wanted and needed and didn't want to do, and obviously they provided critical services to the black community. So there's always been a symbiotic relationship between the African American community and the Asian community up until recent times, honestly. And recent, I wouldn't say like the 60s. Like there was a huge rift between the African American community and the Asian community with somewhere along in the 60s, 70s, a little bit before my time, just a smidge. So I'm not exactly sure what the causes were of that, but if you don't know, then you need to know. I saw a story too, I think on 2020, and it was the opposite. It was a black family that owned property in California, and an Asian family came over, and no one would rent to them. But the black family rented to the Asian family. The Asian family obviously used the property to be a hub for their family. They've done rather well. But one of the original children wanted to find descendants of the black family to thank them for what they did for his family. It was really cool. It was really, really cool. It was very, very touching. There were Native Americans mentioned in the film as well, and that was a little fuzzy to me. I wish Thomas was on to talk about that part. Hopefully, when he comes on later, we can catch that part up because I still haven't caught on to where that made sense. But hey, it was the South. It was depicted in the South in the I guess 30s, 40s, somewhere along that time frame. So it would make sense. It would make sense. But it wasn't. It wasn't a period piece in the sense that it felt dated. It wasn't a period piece in the sense that it felt rushed. It wasn't a period piece in the sense that it felt out of touch with today, if you will. It didn't give you that feeling. Obviously there were things in it that were very much rooted in the period. There were monies that you would never see now. And there was an interview that I saw with him and Michael B. Jordan, and he was saying how no, that's not true. It was Ryan Coogler by himself, and he was saying how plantations were so huge back in the day that shared that they actually had their own currency that could be used on their plantation or amongst neighbors in order to exchange goods, because you know white folks wouldn't give black folks actual US currency. They would just give them money that they could spend amongst one another. It kept them from leaving. It kept them in a sharecropping state. It kept them from generating and building generational wealth. So, um, the plot of the movie is one family comes back to Mississippi in order to make some quick money. And the way they chose to do that was to open a juke joint. So the brothers come with a stash cachet of money that they buy this building from a white guy straight out. They give him straight up cash and tell him in so nice a way, hey man, thank you for this. We don't ever want to see you again. Because if we do, it's going to be a problem. And they seem to be two young gentlemen that could back up that latter part about being a problem. So anyhow, so they go out, I should say, to then hire talent to perform, so on and so forth. It gets tricky once the white man comes into play. Um, no pun intended, but that's how it gets tricky. And things really take off from there, to be honest with you. The rest of the movie comes into play once he's in the picture, and you start to understand or get a sense of where the movie is going to go. One of the things that stuck out to me was how constantly the bad people, I won't give you all the details, the bad people all never wanted to be intrusive. They wanted to make everybody feel like this is a family activity. We're all friends. You know, can't won't you just let me come in? And I'm sorry, won't you invite me in? They wouldn't. They wouldn't cross the show without being invited in. And I recall, always got a lot of sayings, and one of the sayings I recall from my youth is, "You never invite problems into your home." You know what I'm saying? Trouble does come a knocking, but that doesn't mean you gotta lock them. You gotta let them in. That triggered me. I was like, yo, I remember hearing that, and I see it now being depicted in the movie. It was cool. It was really really cool. The sister that played, I think her character's name was Anne. Michael B. Jordan's character's love interest. Was a bad sister. That was a bad sister. She was in tuned to the ancestors. She was in tune to the current times as well. She was very big on helping the community. She ran like a general store, and the kids would come in and pay her in the plantation currency versus actual currency and stuff like that. And she's like, she was Michael B. Jordan asked her, his character asked her, why you accepting this play money? She's like, folks around here, that's all they got, and I can live with that. I'll make it work. Oh man, it was great. It was great. It was truly a a beautiful display of blackness. It really was, and it really spoke to how resourceful we are and how we adapt to difficult situations and still press forward and overcome. Some of us take the hard way. Others, or the not so uh, appropriate way, legal way, if you will. Others and and do well with going about things as they say the right way. Uh, But either way, morning, brother Rodney, how you doing? Either way, we will survive, we will thrive, and we will make it through. So it was definitely a testament to blackness for real. And in the same interview I was talking about earlier with Ryan Coogler, he was saying how the juke joint was actually the nucleus of the nightclub behavior because not too often folks had an opportunity to let their hair down and rejoice. And this is how they let their hair down and rejoice. Maybe once a week they could go out and they get dressed up in their finest, the finest duds that they had to go out and dance or sing or play cards or shoot some dice or drink some liquor or whatever they chose to do. But this was the few times that they were able to just be, breathe, be surrounded by folks that look like them and celebrate life to whatever degree they had a life going on at that time. So yeah, it was definitely a wonderful movie. It was definitely a celebration of blackness, and I would recommend it highly. If you have not seen it yet, go see it. Rodney went to see Black Panther what 20 something times, Rodney? Something like that. Because anybody who hadn't seen the movie yet, Rodney would grab him by the hand, like, "Come on, let's go." The first Black Panther, Rodney. How many times did you go see that movie?
I lost track, Lee. It's 20 something.
Okay. Yeah, 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 yeah. So it was. This is one of those. I don't know if I would see it 20 something times, but I would actually pay to see it more than once. It was definitely worth it. It was definitely worth it. And you don't have to leave your home. You can actually rent it on one of the services. I can't remember which one is on, which is going to cost you roughly the same amount of money as. Well, actually, it would probably cost you less because you don't get the snacks and all that stuff and concessions that it would be if you would go to the movie theater. So,
Now,
yep,
Lee, you got to have
it
the
was worth
movie
it. Have you seen it
popcorn.
yet, Rodney?
No, brother, haven't seen it yet. It's on the list.
I, I, I'm not a movie popcorn dude, man. Like I prefer nachos and cheese to popcorn, to be honest with
Man, I went
you. And
to
the
the,
price of popcorn, man, is ridiculous.
that's relative compared to what we spend on other things, but I was at the Black Las Vegas Film Festival last night looking at a couple of premieres, and sure
Okay.
enough, had to have that popcorn, brother. It's just not being at the movies, even if it's in my living room without that popcorn.
Well, anything that you saw that popped off the screen for you that you're looking forward to seeing when it comes to the big screen?
So I only watched two last night, and one of them was sort of about a crime family in Vegas, a black crime family in Vegas. That interested me. Then there was another one. It was called "Flipping the Scripture," and that surprised me. It was good though.
Okay. Is that the movie that the brother we had on about a year or so ago made? He was making.
Mm, I don't think that's the same movie. No, no, no. That was
Okay.
that was a different brother. That was KC.
Okay.
Yeah, this one was
All right.
made
That's
by
what's up.
Sister Miss Michelle, and then the other one was made by a different brother.
Okay. That's what's up. Hey, Thomas isn't on yet. Okay. The Thomas isn't on yet, so I wanted to. We can bounce around a little bit if you don't mind. With the Pope's passing, before we get our guest on, because I didn't think it was going to take that long to get through to the Pope and his passing. So, if you're not aware, there are approximately. I was in feedback. I'm sorry. There are approximately 1 1.4 billion Catholics in the world. And Pope Francis, who passed on the 21st of April, had been the Pope since 2013. He was the first Jesuit Pope. He was the first Pope from the Americas. He was the first from the Southern Hemisphere and the first born or raised out of Europe since Gregory II of Syria. It's been a long time. It's been a lot of European popes. Now, the word on the street is the next pope very well may be of African descent because there are a lot of Catholics. The Catholic Church is growing in Africa. So the next pope may very well be of African descent. But this pope was very different than we had seen folks being from, and at least acknowledge his life and his legacy because he did step out, try to clean up the image of the Catholic Church, try to a lot of the ills that have been left over the years of the Catholic Church. And, I don't, now, his death to me was not out the blue, obviously, because it wasn't so long ago that we thought he was on his deathbed and he came back from that. But it was odd that Vice President Vance was the last person to see him before he died. I ain't saying nothing. I'm just saying that was a little odd that Vice President Vance was the last person to see him before he passed on into the hereafter.
Lee, did you see the look on
What
the
you got on
Pope's
that?
face? Did you see the look on the Pope's face
Right.
when Vance came up? He was kind of pushed back in his chair. It was almost like he had seen the angel of death that Satan had sent. And if you look at him with the other presidents and the other VIPs, he was happy, jovial, and everything. But for some reason, when JD eyeliner Vance came, the Pope had that. And I was like, is he seeing the four horsemen? Is he seeing one of the four horsemen? What's going on with the Pope? And then sure enough, he's no longer here. So it's like somebody said, you cannot prove that he did it, but you also cannot prove that he didn't do it. Now, there's a little bit of tongue in cheek here, but at the same time, I don't put nothing past this administration.
Nothing at all. Nothing at all, man. The chaos that they've presented here in America, in and of itself, the United States of America. I'm sorry, I would not put it past them that they would try to or want. I wouldn't say try. I'll say still want to induce some of that worldwide, and that's a big stage for them to be on. You know what I'm saying? Again, not saying they did anything, but I can't say they didn't do anything either, because that's very shaky Jake for me. But again, I wanted to recognize the passing of the Pope. You talk about 1.4 billion people. That's a whole lot of people around the world that believe in Catholicism. It is the largest church in Christianity. So they deserve their respect regardless of what you think about them, positive or negative. They represent a whole lot of people on this globe, and they deserve their respect. Just like I would pass on the same respect or same regards to anybody else whom has such a following and loyalists to that degree. You know what I'm saying? We don't have to agree about everything. We don't. That's life. We're never going to agree about everything all the time. But we can respectfully disagree and we can still get along. We can respectfully disagree and we can still get along, unless you're a Steelers fan. If you're a Steelers fan, I can't do nothing for you. It just ain't gonna happen. If you're a Cowgirls fan, you're delusional. So I just pray for you in that aspect. But if you're a Steelers fan, then there's a Steelers fan or Carolina fan. Like there's nothing. Both. God bless your soul. God just help you if you are a Steelers and a Carolina fan. There is no for you in any way, shape, or form whatsoever if you are both of those fans. But it happens like that sometimes. And it's a perfect segue to this morning's guest, Coach Franklin, who is a friend of the show. We haven't seen him in a while. Um, but what a way to bring him in, because I was actually the first guest on his show when he was the executive producer and owner of Radio. What's up, Coach?
Nothing. What's going on? How y'all doing today?
I love that green screen.
Hey, you know
I'm
how I
well, sir.
do.
Morning. So, hey, tell the folks about what you showing in the background there, so they get a better
Well,
introduction than I can give of you,
okay.
sir.
Well, for the last 10 years, I'm the president of the Life-R.E.A.L Council, which is we supplement the items that the Bentlow Recreation Center can't do for the kids. We come in and we try to help out, and fill the gaps. Bentlow is a program that has been around for like 50 years. It started in 1970.
Yes, sir.
And the basketball there is second to none here in the city. And so it was originally put together by Coach Herman Johnson. He passed in 2021, and I took over back in like 2015. And he mentored me when I was a kid because I played there. And then, as far as getting into the coaching and running the program, I started back again in 2015. So this is what you're seeing. You're seeing the kids from West Baltimore playing in different leagues around the city, and some in the country, and just doing what we do.
Well, we appreciate that, sir. The sense of service tends to never leave us, even after we separate from the military. So I would expect nothing less of you. But let's get into this draft, man. Number
Okay.
one question: did you see Cam going as Cam Ward, University of Miami quarterback, going as the very first pick, or who did you have?
No,
Who did you?
I was really not surprised, and was in agreement with him going as the number one pick.
Be the number one pick.
Yeah, he's ready. He's one of those guys that's
Ronnie, you see me because
ready.
I lost Coach.
Yeah, I can see. I don't see you, but I can hear you. I can hear the coach, and I can see the coach.
Right.
So, Coach, until Lee gets back on, continue sharing your thoughts on this question on that first round draft pick.
Yeah, I think that, the need for a quarterback that's ready to come in and, not necessarily have to sit behind a veteran in order to start, to get the job done. And then, I thought Cam is that guy. Like I said, the main thing is him I think he's NFL ready because he thinks the game. When you look at his highlights and stuff, he's able to go 1, 2, 3, 4, and then back to 1. And he does it without panicking. He's able to make the right calls at the right time. He's one of the few college quarterbacks that actually got some time of calling their own offense. So again, I'm as you can tell, I am a big Cam fan, and I was not surprised at all that he was the number one pick, and very happy about it.
Coach, and waiting for Lee to come back on, but do you think that sometimes a player can be physically ready and have all of those skills, that potential, but they're not mentally ready for the game? Or maybe there's something in their background that's going on that sort of distracts them. What do you think he fits in that? Is he physically and mentally ready for it?
I believe he's an asset that way. I think that's one of his strengths. That it's more mental than physical. I think he's more mentally ready than he is physically ready. He's still got to get his man weight, his man strength has to come to him. We all have to go through that. But the way that he thinks the game, is sort of like the young man in DC. He's able to play the game mentally now, even though his body wasn't ready. And I'm a big Jaden Daniels fan. I'm not a Washington football fan, but I'm a Jaden Daniels fan.
Right.
And the fear is that he makes a wrong move and he gets hit, and all of he got to recover. And so that's the same thing with Cam. You hope that they're able to protect him and give him a chance to learn and not have to just carry everything. Put enough around him that he gets some protection. Get a boy 3 seconds. How about that? Let's give him 3 seconds, and I think he'll be okay.
Right. I think Lee is back with us. Lee?
Yeah.
Yeah, I apologize, you all. We had some technical difficulties. Better than last week, but still some. But anyhow, so I thought Travis Hunter was going to be the number 1 pick. With the dual threat potential for Travis, not only being on the defensive side of the ball, but also the offensive side of the ball. Now, I know no NFL team is going to actually let him do that in excess. They may put him in for a couple trick plays here, a couple trick plays there. But I thought that he really had so much of an upside that no one's going to allow him to slid through their hands. Because, again, you can put him on the offensive side of the ball, or you can flip him around and put him on the defensive side of the ball, depending on where your needs are, depending on what your purse looks like, to be honest with you. But I did not project Shador sliding as far as he has either.
Yeah, I did not have that either, but the NFL has a way of sending messages, and they let you know that they netted $9 billion last year. Netted $9 billion. So if the world never sees you in the NFL, we'll be okay. We will be just fine. It's not going to suffer at all. So I think a message is I think a message is just being sent. Right. Yeah, and if I'm Shador, I really contemplate going back to school for it. He got another year eligibility. Go take $3 or $4 million to go back and play in college next year. Why take, as a 4th round or later? Why take $200,000-300,000 to go get beat up in the NFL when you can go get $3 or $4 million to stay in college? That's just math to me. And maybe you can rebuild that reputation.
No, I agree.
Yeah. Yeah. So
I agree. I saw people knocking him because I'm sorry. I saw people knocking him because he didn't go to the combine. I saw people knocking him because he didn't play at the senior game. I don't think any of those things really would have helped him. I mean, his stats are his stats. You look at folks that got drafted before him or after him, his completion percentage is better. He's sitting at downs and interceptions are a little off. But as a franchise, you say you need someone who's going to be decisive with the ball, who can get the ball out quickly and can deliver it. That's Shador Sanders. I don't understand how you getting somebody over him when you've seen him throw the long ball. He's extremely accurate. You've seen him throw the short ball. He's extremely accurate. I'm not saying that his interceptions should be overlooked, but let's be real. He didn't have the greatest receivers at Colorado. I mean, the greatest receivers were not trying to come to Boulder.
Right.
They weren't bad, but they weren't the greatest. His number 1 target was Travis Hunter. Then you had what's the boy? Horn. Yeah, you had him there, but he didn't have the greatest daggone targets, not the softest hands to throw to. Again, not excusing him, but looking at his performance as a total.
Yeah. So again, when it comes to
cannon and not just a portion.
Okay, Lee, your connection is breaking up a little bit. I'm gonna give the coach a chance to respond to what you just said.
His name to be called. I don't get it.
So, what my response to that is where I began. I think this has zero to do with football and playing the actual game of football. It has everything to do with um, as we putting somebody in their place. You know, they got too big for their britches. And if you're of a certain age, you've heard that saying before. You know, that we have to get you in the right, right frame
Yes.
of mind. You need the NFL. The NFL doesn't need you. No, none of us. Nobody's bigger than the Shield, and you need to learn that. And everybody around you. And the bigger message is everybody around you needs to learn that. And so, playing the game of football, he's proven that he's more than NFL ready. He's deserving and all that. But again, the NFL thinks about that shield more than they think about an individual. So therefore, they're protecting that shield, and by sending a message to him.
Hey, Coach, one of the questions I had for you was we're seeing, and this has been going on since Randall Cunningham, but we're seeing more black quarterbacks,
Mm-hmm.
and they sort of dominate their position.
Mm-hmm.
And even now in the draft, we're seeing black quarterbacks.
Right.
Why do you think there's sort of this explosion, not just of black quarterbacks,
Mm-hmm.
but the black quarterbacks that dominate their position, that's at the top of the game? What do you think is going on with that?
I think it's always been there, but the opportunity to exploit it wasn't given. The thought was that if we have a black quarterback, we'll lose our white fans. And our white fans are the majority of who support this, the league and the game itself. But with globalization, you don't necessarily need just the white fans anymore. You have a global audience which wants to see the best football possible. So now football players, meaning these guys who are more athletic, think faster, play faster, they make your team win. So that becomes important. And now we got to appeal to, that football, right? The game itself. And we don't necessarily have to worry about just the white fans in the United States of America. We worry about all fans all over the whole country. And if you notice on that note, the influx of African players in all sports here in America, they are absolutely taking over because you get all the athleticism of the traditional African American player, and you get none of the controversy. They're not bringing their mama in them and all that. These guys are academically strong. They're physically strong. They play the game the right way, and you don't get all of that other stuff that comes with the traditional African American player. So, in my words, the African American player, believe it or not, in all sports that we traditionally hear in the United, they're in trouble. They don't need you no more. They done found your replacement, and I just, it's woo. So yes, it's great to see the African American quarterback, the explosion, the way that they play. They're playing the game on a high level mentally, which is incredible. That's the thing that makes me the most proud. But there's not the African guys, man, they're taking over. That's just my opinion. They are taking over.
Okay, it looks like Brother Lee is back, and we have Brother Thomas Berry from the great state of Minnesota.
Yes, sir.
That is on.
Thomas Berry's on.
We have Coach Franklin from I believe the Beatmore area.
Yeah, absolutely, from Baltimore. Absolutely.
And he's sharing some of the wisdom. The question I just asked him was the sort of explosion of the black quarterback and how they have dominated their position. I would even venture to say that they're changing the position.
Mm-hmm.
They're not just dominating it, but they're doing it in such a way that they're changing the way the game is played. Mm-hmm. They're changing defensive strategies because of the way that they move. But that's just one man's opinion. What do you guys have for the coach?
So I would say they're changing the position, but I would also look at this situation with Shador and even going to Lamar Jackson as a cautionary tale.
Oh, wow.
Because in America, the black man can't have a peace without white folks having a peace. What Lamar and Shador have in common is that Lamar's mother is his agent.
Mm-hmm.
Shador doesn't have an agent,
Mm-hmm.
which that means that these white / Jewish
Mm-hmm.
agents are not a part of the racket of these hundreds of millions of dollars that these quarterbacks will bring in.
Mm-hmm.
And so since they're not, they're blackballing them out of money. Lamar dropped all the way down to the end of the first round. And at the time, Ozzie Newsome, who's no longer a GM, who's also African-American, he traded up with Baltimore to get him. That's the difference. If Ozzie wasn't there, they were talking about Lamar should have become a wide receiver or a running back. And you don't have as many people, many as of us taking a chance on these guys. So while I do believe that they're revolutionizing the position, there's still the things behind the scenes that is problematic. Because you'll hear the stories of these young men getting caught up in these investment firms. And you hear stories about how they're supposed to be making, you know, the investments sound like they're going to be great. And they'll put a large chunk of their salaries into these investment groups. Their agents would be a part of it. The agent would have a cousin or a real estate investor that knows about, this big old, piece of land or these casinos. This out in Vegas. And what always happens is the brothers are the ones that always take the hit. Meanwhile, that agent, the agent's cousin, the investment group, they ain't robbed of nothing. Find out that you've been the mark the entire time. And our community don't talk about that enough because we criticize them. And the first thing we say is you blew that money on cars, clothes, and jewelry and women. No, you can't spend that much. The same agent that gives you the loaner money so you can wear these big old diamond encrusted pendants on draft night, driving around in these finer cars. Your mother wants that Louis Vuitton dress to show up into the NBA draft day on, right? That's those people who are fronting you that money. It's a devil's ransom. And so I want us to think about that when we say that they are revolutionizing the position. That's on the field, but on the bank account, unless you give them access, you won't be able to be the face of anything. And another brother is young brother from Philadelphia. He also has a sister that's his agent. So and then look at how they talked about him and try to make him out not to be a top quarterback. He won the Super Bowl, but because they didn't have their hands in his pocket, this is what they do to you. And so that's what I want us to start really paying attention to. Because black folk, we get caught up in what we say.
Right.
White folks get caught up in what they do. And we believe in the power of the tongue. And the white man said, I'm going to show you the power of the sword. I'll cut your tongue out.
That's very, Mr. Berry, that is very insightful. And I look at it in everyday life. Let's apply that to everyday life. It's sort of like one of us getting caught up and you show up to court without a lawyer. Well, you ain't getting no justice because you didn't pay into their system. Until you pay into that court law system, the lawyer, the judge, the prosecutor, until you make some of them some money, you ain't getting no justice. So you have to be able to pay into the system, right? And that's the same thing like you're saying with these guys signing these contracts. They have to have, you got to be giving some of this money to your agent, to your lawyer, to your financial advisor. Again, if you're not making our whole system, our ecosystem thrive, then we're going to push you out of it.
100%.
What we should be saying to each other is Jaden and Lamar, Oh wow, we went dark. Everything went dark for me. But
I can still hear you, Coach.
Others, you guys ought to get together because your 50 million and his 50 million now makes 100 million. You get 3 or 4 other guys, you guys got $1 billion and you can do whatever you want and you don't need them. But instead, we like to be in competition with each other and not have to trust each other, when instead the next step in this thing is for us to pool together. Right? Because if they pull together, you really now don't need them. And the way that social media, like we're doing right now, you can control your forward-facing narrative. You know, you can put the story out the way that it needs to be put out, what we'll call the truth, and go on from there. You know, so yeah, what you said was really, really insightful. Another little part I look at too is these guys going to these major universities and getting this money. And who do they have access to? Meaning the women. They have access to a lot of people, a lot of white women. Let me just be straight up with it. And you look at the guys coming in the league now, they call African American. All of them are mixed.
Right.
You know? So you take your money that was